Welcome to Love and Speak the Truth with me, Sister Brenda, the podcast where all voices are heard with diverse guests from all over the globe. We make space for stories of integrity, justice, freedom, and joy. So come along. We're not afraid to get into the tough stuff, and we're actually not afraid to laugh along the way. So buckle up, open your heart, open your mind, and let's get this party started. It is a deep honor to welcome Sister Veronica Fuhrmann, CJ, General Superior of the Congregation of Jesus, joining us from Rome. Over the past 4 years, she has led our congregation through the historic completion of the merger of the two Mary Ward Institutes, CJ and IBVM, bringing them fully together as one. While the legal union is complete, the sacred work of shaping a shared vision and nurturing relationships across a global body of women of faith continues to define her ministry. Her generosity and humility are inspiring. Welcome, Sister Veronica. Okay, today is a very special day because I am sitting here with our own General Superior, our own Sister Veronica Fuhrmann. She is a person I have admired from afar, and hopefully you'll get to know her a little bit better. I think she is amazing. She's prayerful. She is gifted in so many ways. I am so glad that you're here today, Sister Veronica. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm also happy to be here and to talk to you, Brenda, as I'm very happy to see you after some time.
So just let us begin into our conversation by sharing what is it that you're involved in right now?
So my present role is I am the General Superior of the Congregation of Jesus, a religious congregation, apostolic women, and we are in more than 40 countries all over the world, and we are structured in different provinces. So we have 23 provinces, as I said, in more than 40 countries. I am at the highest level of the general leadership, but then the level below, we have a hierarchical structure, and the level below, there are the province leaders, and another level below, there are the local leaders. So there is a quite evident structure, and my role is, let's see, to oversee the whole, to have the coordination of the whole, also to support the province leaders and the province leadership teams very specially, but also to be in touch with the sisters, which I do when I go on visitation to the different provinces. I have a 9 years term of office. And in these 9 years, I should visit all the places all over the world and have a personal conversation with every sister. That is one part of what I do. The other part is the governance part, which I do from Rome, where our central office is based. That is accompanying the provinces, going through requests, applications, whatever comes up, to see what is happening in the provinces, to take decisions around personnel, appointments, all this kind of stuff we are also doing. And then, of course, there is the whole area of legal things, administration, finances. So the Roman office, the central office, is where everything comes together.
It's the headquarters. It's
It's a
of
headquarter.
the head of the institute. Now, I think people will get that because I'm certainly going to make sure that we all know that you are the person. This is where the buck stops. But let me ask you this. How do you feel about being in such a very significant role for women religious today? How is it that you see your vision coming into this at a time when women religious are not only diminishing, but they're growing? There are two things happening. It's a very serious sort of position to be in, to give that vision of handling both the diminishment as well as the growth.
Yeah, if you ask me now how I feel, it's my fourth year in leadership. I would say a little bit better than in the beginning. The day when I was elected, it was just horrible. I was very scared,
Yes.
envisaging that huge responsibility. Sisters had prayed so much before, but I was sure that the Holy Spirit had taken leave of absence during the elections. That is why my name came up. Now, after a number of years, I have the same respect for this huge responsibility.
Mhm,
It is a big responsibility. It is a great challenge. But I have also realized I'm not doing it alone.
mm,
We are working in a team here in Rome. That is one thing. And there is good collaboration with the different provinces. So I am the last responsible, but in my daily doing, I'm not left alone.
mhm.
So I have support.
What do you think in your life prepared you for, or what did the sisters see in you that they said, "This is our woman for this era in this time"?
Actually, I don't know what they saw in me. When I reflected on that, why I was given this responsibility, I tried to make out what could have been a reason for doing so. And I think one thing is that 30 years ago, I had already a term in the central leadership team. I was general secretary at that time from 93 to 2000. I was already connected on the global level. I knew a little bit about how a generalate functions. I was in touch. I had some leadership experience on the province level. I was on the leadership team as the vicar. So some experience was there. Maybe also I'm a person who is quite flexible and open-minded. So for me, diversity is a value, and I try to see challenges not as a problem, but as a project. I can get in touch with people quite easily. I think I'm a good listener.
I am resonating with all the things that you're saying about yourself because, I don't know you that well, but from afar, I could see how much you appreciate the differences in us. I mean, when you say we come from 40 different countries, all of us together, that diversity is a global view of what we live with in our world, not only the people, but in the places where we live, in the cultural representation that all of us bring to this understanding of community, religious communities. People can see that you appreciate diversity. And this is something that we need today. People are afraid of difference, you know?
That is very true. And it is, let's say, diversity for me is a big value. It's a huge richness we have in our congregation and in our world, but
Mm,
to live it is also a big challenge.
mhm,
And we quite often oversee that, let's say, the great events when we cherish diversity as the richness of cultures, of customs, of traditions, of whatever,
mhm.
that is beautiful. But in the daily nitty-gritty, in the daily life, it can be very challenging. I see and experience also in an international team the beauty of it, but I also see the challenge of it. And that enters a little bit into what is a vision for religious life today. I think we should be people who very sincerely work on ourselves and become aware of our own mindsets
Oh,
and of
yeah.
our own boxes in which we are stuck. And once you have that awareness, you open up for that what is different, even
Mm.
if you can't understand it. This work on oneself is so important.
Oh, yes. I say amen to that. The working on oneself, because the fear of others means in some way that we are insecure in ourselves in another way. That whole idea of being in a box, we do that to people. We put them in a box, and that's where they stay, and we judge them from afar with our own lens. And so the gift of appreciating diversity is first starting, as you said, working on yourself. I love that. How do you think that people in our congregation, as well as the people we serve, how do they view us in that? Are we good examples of diversity? I think we are, but let's see from your perspective.
Well, I would say we try to be good examples, and in many places we are, but there is always room to improve. I think it is a little bit in our charism also that that desire for being inclusive, for doing justice to everybody, or for sincerity that includes the appreciation for diversity also. And I would say there is an enormous amount of goodwill
Hmm.
in the congregation, and not only in our congregation, in religious life on the whole. And a little bit we know what we speak about because we live it ourselves. We have the
Hmm.
mixed communities, the intercultural communities, the multilinguistical communities. So we know a little bit about what we speak when
Hmm.
we talk about it. And we also know it's not that easy.
We've we've had to live through that, through history. We've had to
Mm.
live through that,
Yeah.
the system of trying to become better at being humans with each other. I am reflecting right now in the situation in my own country here in the US. We are struggling under this administration, but also in a shift in the way we see other. There's the otherness of the box that you just talked about, being in the box and putting other people in a box and not allowing ourselves to see the human goodness that resides in each one. Some of us call it to see the Christ in each other.
Mhm.
Sometimes we see each other as brothers and sisters, as neighbor. I think one of the things that religious life has to offer to this vision is that even though it's a struggle sometimes to live together in a peaceful, right relationship with each other, it's important for us to learn that. In this country right now, we're in the middle of a crisis of diversity. We are living in a situation where equity, inclusion, diversity are being oppressed from the highest levels of government and leadership. I just wonder if we as religious women can provide a type of leadership and guidance in doing that. Do you see anything from your view, from a global view, how we might somehow deal with that inability to come back living that diversity, that loving of neighbor?
I would think so, and that would be a part of my vision for religious life today. And I would start even a little earlier before the vision. If we look at ourselves, a prerequisite that I can accept diversity is that I am aware of my identity and I embrace it. And there is a difference if I find my true identity or if I'm just identifying with the system in which I live, in
Mhm,
traditions, in habits, in whatever it is. And I think once you are aware of your real identity, you have the strength and the desire to appreciate the identity of others. So that is the part of work on ourselves. And then I think, especially religious life, where we have so many opportunities for growth, spiritual growth, human growth, everything, we should be able to offer that safe space to people, be it spiritual, be it emotional, be it psychological, be it also material sometimes, giving shelter, whatever comes up. So that would be one of the things I think we can actively provide, uh, offering safe spaces for people. And if it's only a safe space in a conversation, a
mhm,
safe space, and this for religious life on the whole, I think is important. And then really also to be aware of the values of our charism and have the courage to stand up, to proclaim them, and to stand for them, even if it means that I take disadvantages. So
mhm,
if you raise your voice in a political system which does not support your values, It needs courage, but it has an impact. And I think in that sense, religious life in our world has a prophetic mission to stand up for what others do no longer mention.
Yes, the prophetic voice, and sometimes the safe space that we need is, for me, that risk that I need to step out, to not be afraid, to step out of my own comfort zone, and my ability to speak truth to power, which is another difficulty that we're having because we're experiencing in this country retaliation for speaking out. But it's as you said, we still have to do it even if it causes us some pain ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm. And even as a congregation, we have to discern, let us say, where do we stand up as a whole body in front of an oppressive system or an unjust system? Where do we raise our voice on behalf of all those people who cannot do it?
Yes, we're definitely in a time where we're calling on the people with a higher platform, a louder voice, a bigger stage to be able to come in and speak for those who seem to be voiceless in this system, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're seeing that in many places in the church. You know, we have bishops and cardinals and our very own pope speaking up, and we have our leaders, our own religious leaders like yourself, saying we need to take the risk to stand together with the people who are powerless. We all have some power to, to bring justice into view. So what are the kinds of struggles that you bring to prayer that sometimes you almost sense that what can we do? And then you have to take it to prayer. I think we take it to the place where we realize that we're not in charge. God's in charge.
Yeah, let's say that there's a difference. Of course, in my role as the leader of a congregation, I pray a lot for my own congregation. And that one constant prayer for me is that our sisters keep that joyful availability for mission and that fire for mission, which they all have. And sometimes, when life gets a little bit difficult, this fire diminishes a little bit. So that is my prayer. Let them be on fire in order to set the world on fire, as Mary Ward said. And I think this inner joy and also the responsible discernment, which is so important in our spirituality, are basic conditions as well as the dialogue capability for a transformation of traditional leadership away from the hierarchical system and more towards real synodality. And it is also, let's say, this joyful availability a condition for being credible to the world. Otherwise, what we do actually can be done by other people as well. But how we do it, that should make the difference.
Oh, wow. That's powerful because what we do, other people can do. How we do it what is the difference you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also pray a lot from my own experience. I pray a lot for those who are entrusted leadership responsibilities in the congregation because I know what it means and I know how important it is to make good decisions and to take responsibility, to accept responsibility, and to accompany well all the members on the ground, even through challenges. People need accompaniment, and leaders need the strength to do so, the energy to do so. And when I pray for our congregation as a whole, I always pray that Mary Ward's charism contributes to bring a difference to our church and also to our world.
I'll just share this one story with you. It's when I was elected to go to leadership in Rome many years ago, 2014, I left a ministry that I loved. I worked at Loyola University for 27 years. I had a big title. director for ministry at the Stritz School of Medicine. The title wasn't as great as all that, but what I got to do, I did everything that I felt called to do. I got to work on liturgies. I got to give the homilies. I got to boss priests around and tell them what to do. I loved it. Loved being with the students. The students were eager to learn and discover, that faith was not just a piety that people went through motions to do, that we were in the classrooms with the medical students to teach them and help them to grow in their vocation as doctors. I'm telling you, I even loved the fundraising part. We had to do it in order for the kids to go and the students to do service around the world. We did medical service in different parts of underserved areas in our own country as well as in other countries. And I'm telling you, that was the best job. I thought they would get me out of there when I'm dead. Well, then I got elected. I went to the meeting thinking I was going to help out with the liturgies and I would, do fun things at the liturgies. Then I would go home and get back to my work. Not so. I felt so devastated that I was losing my life, my whole life, 27 years of doing the things that I love to do and felt called to do. And then I have to go and leave everything and move to Rome. And then I thought I had to put on this holiness. I don't know where I got that from. I don't But I thought I had to change my whole way of being because now we're at this spot where we were supposed to be good examples. In any case, the leader at the time, Sister Mary Wright, she said, Brenda, this was at the meeting. She said, the Institute, the community wants you to be happy, wants you to be the best Brenda that you can be, so that light will be shared with the rest of the community and the rest of the world. Well, I never looked at it that way. And I just thought, so I'm going to Rome to be happy. I'm happy here. And she said, yes, that fullness of life is what we bring to the world, that we bring the integrity of who we are on our mission, that we do it with great freedom because I had to leave something that I loved. And she made this whole case. And so I settled down and I prayed about it. Did you know that truth is we are supposed to be where we're supposed to be when we get there? And I think what you're saying in terms of doing what we do and doing it in the way that we do it is just as important and it's meaningful because in today's age, anybody can be in ministry. Lay people all over the world are doing what religious used to do exclusively. But now that I think because of Vatican II, that full participation in the church means words as well as actions, right? I'm beginning to think that there's a very practical meaning to going out and setting the world on fire, and that we have to do what we're called to do in the moment and allow God to use us in that way, isn't it? That's what's happening with you as the person with the vision leading us through, isn't it?
I hope so. Yeah, but what you say is correct, and I think that aspect of happiness, maybe not always the happiness in the daily things you are doing, but if you find your happiness in your vocation and in the life you were called to, and in the mission you are sent and called to, that radiates, and people will notice it. They also notice when they have an unhappy religious next to
Mhm.
them. And this has a very powerful impact. And when this happiness is there, the fundamental happiness, which does not exclude that there are days which are gray and sad and difficult, but if there is a fundamental happiness in what I have chosen and in to what I was called, then you will also be able to address difficulties differently. You will see them as something you try to give your best to bring improvement. And also know that only a tiny little part depends on you. A lot of it is grace,
Mm.
and it needs the contribution of so many. And this is one thing I am always aware of too. Actually, little depends on me. It always depends on those with whom I deal, if they accept, if they welcome, if they join, if they support. And I have also experienced in these 4 years of leadership, there were very challenging situations, and somehow there was a lot of grace, and God gave us solutions we had never thought, never imagined, and things went differently. But it was a very consoling experience. And that also gives you the trust to go ahead, knowing that you have to commit totally 100% or more, but it doesn't depend on you, everything. You do your part in it.
You do your part. Yes, that is true. That is so true. And having the courage to do my part is also a stepping out of comfort zone, having the courage to do it.
And for me, that was an experience throughout my whole life. I was always called to things I wouldn't have chosen myself.
Yes.
That started in the very beginning when I was a novice already, but I was always very happy in what I did.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in the mission I was called to, and I had accepted and embraced, I thought it couldn't be better in another setting. So
Mm-hmm.
it is the attitude in which you embrace things, in which you accept what is coming.
What's one of those hard things that you wouldn't mind sharing that you thought one way and then you were called to do it and then you found it was your right place to be?
Yeah, my dream already from childhood on was I wanted to study medicine and to be a doctor and to go to poor countries and to help people. I had in my family background a lot of sickness, not myself, but my parents, my grandparents. And so I was used to that desire, I want to help. And that was my dream. And when after my novitiate, the question came up, well, now you have to do your university. What would you like doing? And I said, medicine.
Mm.
And my provincial said, well, that's out of question. We need you in the school. But medicine is simply impossible. And I said, but you have missions in Africa. Our province has a mission in Africa. Wouldn't they need a doctor? No, we need you in Germany. Okay.
Mm.
I studied language and literature for the school, and I went to school. I was a completely happy and very committed teacher. I loved my ministry. I even thought it's funny that I get money for what I'm doing because I love it so much.
Mm.
And then I was called to Rome as a general secretary. So I had to leave a mission for something I would never have imagined that I would end up in administration, but that was a huge opportunity for me to grow, to
Mhm.
get to know the institute on an international, on a global level, to broaden my horizon, to learn a little bit about diversity before it was a topic in our society,
Mhm.
um, all these things. So that was also not wanted, not intended, but it was a good experience, you
Mm.
know.
Mm.
And then I
Mm.
went back with the idea I'm going back to school. And I had a chance of doing an assistant nurses training. I did. And afterwards, I had part-time in our infirmary with our elderly sick sisters and part-time in the school.
Mm.
And then I also did some refugee work. So it was never what I had planned, but it was always wonderful. There
Yes.
is always grace in it. And
Yes.
if you embrace it in a positive attitude, you will find joy in it.
Yes. Yes. There is always grace in it because I too found much grace in my time in leadership in Rome. There was grace-filled years, not without difficulty, but grace-filled. And it's amazing that you said that you were interested in medicine. I loved medicine too when I was growing up, but I found I didn't have the intellectual abilities to, because as soon as I had to take organic chemistry, medicine was off the table. But you have languages, and I think maybe that comes back to your diversity. It's when you're able to speak and learn and listen in another language.
Mhm.
Now I think that that is the absolute driver for respecting others, respecting the gift of being from another place and in another mindset. So how many
Mhm.
languages exactly do you speak, sister?
Well, German is my mother tongue, and then I have English, French, Italian, Spanish. I understand Portuguese, and I speak a little bit of Hungarian.
Mamma mia. Ah,
Mm.
amazing. How did you come by this ability to have so many languages in your experience?
Um, English and French and Latin came from school. And that was a good basis. And then I had my university studies in German and French language and literature. And when I came to Rome for the first time as a general secretary, my general superior told me simply like this: well, you have to learn Spanish and Italian. Italian because you have to function here. You have to deal with the outsides, and Spanish we need for the Spanish speaking part of the institute. And I was quite young at that time, and I loved learning languages, so I did.
Mm,
Okay, and when I came back to Germany after my term, years later, I got the responsibility for the Hungarian part of our province. And and that time I learned a little bit on my own.
mhm.
So it was always out of need that I learned, but I loved it.
You have an ability to relate in the words as well as the empathy and the compassion. You have the grace of the gift of language, the polyglot, multilingual. You're just absolutely perfect in this role because we're so diverse in languages. Why do you think I asked you to join in this podcast? What do you think about sharing a little bit of yourself on this platform?
Well, one thing is I don't mind sharing about myself, and I'm happy to answer whatever questions people have. For the podcast itself, I was not so enthusiastic because I am not used to performance in media. I had a number of interviews, yes, but there was always the how will it go? What will they ask? What will I say? What will people think? All this comes up as
Mhm,
well.
mhm.
But then I thought, well, if it is useful and if it is a help in whatever sense, it's good. And I take the risk to expose myself and I try to be as sincere as possible. And
Yeah.
the rest is out of my control. Yeah.
What I hear from many of the sisters and companions here is we'd love to get to know the leadership better, and we would like to get a sense of who you are. And so I thought it was really important at this stage to hear your voice. What would you like for us to know about you?
Well, to the sisters and companions and the Mary Ward family, the first thing I want to say is that I am looking forward very much to meeting you in person. This year, it is not possible for me. We have 9 consultations and visitations, but in the nearer future, I will do my very best to come over to the US to meet you all. Also, for me, it is important to get to know the sisters and to establish personal relationships. And I want them to know that you are always welcome, everybody of you. It's never a disturbance when you pop up in my WhatsApp or in my email channel. So I really want to be open to be available for all with
Mm,
whatever they might come up. And let's say to the wider public, yeah, maybe that even in a leadership role, which seems very important, and I say seem because here in Rome, a general superior is nothing. There are hundreds of them, you know. So it's very relative. But
mhm.
even in that role, which seems so important and which seems to accumulate power and huge responsibility, which is true, you cook with water. as we say in German. I don't know whether you say that in English, but that means we are really very simple human beings. We have a vision, we have desires, we do our best, but we are very normal, simple human beings with very human needs, very human experiences. And I think that part of us is what we want to share with others. Not the
Mhm.
role, not the hierarchy, not the power, not even so much what we do, but it is being companions. That's how I understand also my leadership role. Not so much as the one, well, I have to take decisions, yes, and sometimes I have to say no to certain things. But I see my role much more in walking with others and trying to find out together what the next step is.
I find that you meet people where they are, and I think that's a very genuine and authentic way of being in relationship is to meet people where they are.
Mm.
We have a lot of sisters very much involved in ministry here, but we also have a lot of diminishment.
That's all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, to recognize that there's still value, there's still mission in diminishment. We are called to engage the body of Christ until we have no breath.
Yeah, and I think also we have to come away from the idea, which was so powerful in our past, that big numbers is what makes the impact. It's not the big numbers; it's the quality of what we do. And I'm sure we will exist throughout history until the end of the world,
Mhm.
but with a smaller number of members,
Mm.
and that's okay. You
Yes.
know, the context is different. There are no longer that many children. Religious life is no longer well known. It's not that well understood in our society today, so that the conditions are different. But even if we are few, the few can make a difference. And
Mhm.
not to measure ourselves only along categories of quantity.
Mhm.
And also how we learn to let go of a glorious past can give a huge witness to the world.
Well, I think that's a good place to start our little wind down because it gives us the the, the motivation to know there's not quantity that's necessarily the biggest measure of who we are, but the quality of who we are, and that makes so much sense to me. Mm. The last thing is that we would want to end up on because, as you know, the podcast, the theme of it and the name of it, "Love and Speak the Truth," comes directly from Mary Ward. And we ask the guests to just end with, what does love got to do with everything that we've shared or how we're living this life? What's love got to do with it?
I think love is the alpha and the omega in all that. And there is for me a wonderful poem of a German poet of Erich Fried, uh, and the title is "What It Is." And I
Mhm.
have the poem in front of me. I will just read it out, and then I think you understand why I was reminded of that poem.
Mhm.
It says, "It is nonsense," says reason. "It is what it is," says love. "It is misfortune," says calculation. "It is nothing but pain," says fear. "It is hopeless," says insight. "It is what it is," says love. "It's ridiculous," says pride. "It is reckless," says caution. "It is impossible," says experience. "It is what it is," says love.
Mm, it is
And
what it is.
yeah, and that is for me so important. You know, if you approach life with a basic love in you, then you first of all you accept what is, and then you reflect how can we improve. I love this poem very much, and it helps me very much approaching situations which are tough, which are difficult. But just, first of all, let it be and accept what is.
Thank you so much. You are a gift. You are an inspiration, and you are amazing presence of God in my life. And I'm so grateful that you decided to come on the podcast and share a bit of yourself. Thank you.
It was a pleasure for me talking with you, Brenda, especially as we know each other a little bit.
Yes, amen. And now for the wrap up. You have just had a human experience from a spiritual being. We have so much to learn. So go forth to love and speak the truth. Ad majorem Dei Gloria.